A top federal program for Nicaraguan immigrants is ending. We'll hear from activists who are protesting the Department of Homeland Security decision.
Plus, a company here in LA is trying to come up with a way to limit damage from car ramming attacks.
Annenberg TV News is next.
Live from USC, you're watching Annenberg TV News.
Students are gathering tonight at the Wallace-Annenberg Forum to watch election results for two key gubernatorial races. The event is just getting underway as the election results are coming in. Good evening, I'm Will Farnsworth.
And I'm Brittany Hope. Today, Americans headed to the polls to vote in local, state, and special elections. Usually these elections don't have the same turnout as presidential elections, but the races for governor in Virginia and New Jersey are getting national attention. They are the first statewide races since Donald Trump took office. Virginia opponents Republican Ed Gillespie and Democrat Ralph Northam have publicly feuded throughout the campaign. Meanwhile, Democrats in New Jersey have won back the governor's seat in their state that's been under Republican leadership for 8 years. Now let's take a look from the latest from the polls. Democrat Ralph Northam has won the gubernatorial election in Virginia against Republican Ed Gillespie. And over in New Jersey, Democrats also took back the governorship. Democrat Phil Murphy defeated Republican Kim Guadagno to succeed current GOP Governor Chris Christie. We will keep you updated throughout the night as more news comes from Virginia and New Jersey. But here in California, we have our Dan. Dan, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on over there?
In 2004, when I was working on John Kerry's campaign, the folks in
Thanks, Brittany. I'm here at Wallace-Annenberg Hall at USC right now, and we have a bit of a panel set up to discuss these national elections, as you can see behind me right now. It's a bipartisan discussion to discuss really how Americans have responded in today's elections, especially after seeing the results from both Virginia and New Jersey, two of the biggest seats of today's race. Now, our first panelist is Eileen McMenamin. She is the former communications director under John McCain, representing one side of the political spectrum. And on the other end, we have Bill Burton. He is the former deputy White House press secretary under the Obama administration. Now, two very big panelists, and at the head of all of this is Mr. Bob Strum. He's the head of the Unruh Institute that is leading these conversations tonight at Annenberg. We spoke with Mr. Strum earlier today to see what these elections mean for Americans moving forward and how this represents how Americans are responding to the Trump administration as it rounds out its first year in office. Take a look.
Well, I think one thing we have to do is, on all sides, really work at restoring some civility, learning how to agree without being disagreeable, learning how to say that we hate an idea without hating a person. You have to vote. Walking down the street and protest doesn't do much good at all if you don't walk down the street and go to your polling place.
It's going to be facing a lot of Republicans if they don't start to stand up and start enunciating.
So as we talked about earlier, Democrats coming away big today. Not only Virginia, not only New Jersey, but Bill de Blasio in New York as well. And we talked about that in the panel here. You can hear behind me Bill Burton's talking about how it's usually the out-of-house party that's going to come away with the most votes. But this year is particularly decisive, given how President Trump has been received by the community. This could spell big things for the future. Who knows? But here at Annenberg, we're discussing it at deep length. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Dan. Tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary of one of the most stunning political upsets in modern American history. Real estate mogul and reality TV star Donald Trump beat former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton by 77 Electoral College votes. Since the election, Trump has withdrawn from the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Paris Climate Accord. Several attempts to ban travelers from Muslim-majority countries have also been struck down in federal court. He fired FBI Director James Comey, who was investigating Russian meddling in the election, and he selected Neil Gorsuch to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court.
I'm excited to welcome Feline Keon, who interned for the Hillary campaign, Alex Marks, who interned in the White House this summer and for the Trump campaign, and finally Tiana Lau, a National Review writer. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Alex, my first question is actually for you. As a Trump supporter and also as a former intern, what have the president's strengths and weaknesses been so far since he's been in the Oval Office? And do you feel like he's maintained the promises he made during the campaign trail?
Well, would I have liked for more things, to get passed or stuff that he was able to promise in the campaign trail to happen? Yeah, I would like that. But I think for me, some of the best things that he was able to do are some things that he pulled away from. For instance, during the first couple of weeks, canceling TPP, moving away from that, not having conflict in Syria, and in general, some of the deregulation he's been able to do has been great. Healthcare getting passed, that would have been great. Personally, I think he should have gone for infrastructure first and tried to build a coalition with Democrats. But, they went a different direction, and now we're seeing what we can get done.
Great. And Felina, on the other side of the spectrum, although there are growing fractures in the GOP, as Alex touched on a little bit, many argue that sometimes the Democratic Party is even more disjointed lately. So how do you recommend that Democratic leadership unite as they're preparing for this 2020 election? And who do you think will step up to eventually lead the party?
Yes, I think you bring up a very important question, one that has been on the minds of many Democrats, Republicans, Americans alike. I think the Democratic Party will benefit from having a wide breadth of people involved in the leadership process. So Democrats have been struggling to name a leader, right? So they're saying, a lot of people are kind of shirking the question. They're saying, oh, we don't know. And in the sense, no one has really stepped up. But I would like to see Democrats feel that they are able to, within their own party, say, hey, I want to be the leader, but have a lot of people say this. Because I think that will create a good dialogue between kind of the breadth of the party and kind of produce just a better message than I think Democrats were able to produce in 2016. So that's what I would like to see.
Right, and as a follow-up, we see that the governors now in New Jersey and Virginia are both now Democrats. It was just named a few minutes ago. Do you think that's going to help the Democratic Party in that 2020 election?
I think it's really good that the Democrats won in Virginia and New Jersey. I think it's just good for the party that there has been some wins because that hasn't been the case in past elections. Also special elections that happened after after 2016. So yes, in short, it will help.
I was just thinking the loss of Chris Christie for the Democrats. I mean, my God, is there an easier punching bag, honestly?
Yeah, it's almost a bad thing for them.
Yeah, kind of a loss more for the Democrats than for the Republicans. I think we're just happy that he's gone.
Right, and Tiana, to follow up with you, you were very vocal on your social media accounts and in your writing about voting for Gary Johnson because you weren't a big fan of either Clinton or Trump, and a lot of people in your age group agreed, neither of those candidates, they're really turned off by both of those candidates. So what do you recommend for politicians who are hoping to go into that 2020 election as candidates for president? How do you think that they can better access that younger demographic?
Well, so I think that there are two empirical truths that have been revealed over the last year. One, it is important to run against something. Two, it is important to run for something. For example, Northam beat Hillary in the white, college-educated female demographic by miles against Hillary Clinton. What does this show? I mean, exit polls pretty much unilaterally showed that people were more voting against Hillary than they were for Trump in the 2016 election. So yes, it is true that it is important to run against something. I think that the election of Karen Handel over John Ossoff also showed sort of running against this idea of a young carpetbagging technocrat versus someone who is a proven tried and true GOPer who believes in small government conservatism. That being said, I think that this sort of soft-pedaled nationalism that is overwhelmingly hostile towards the laissez-faire libertarianism that has more taken over the millennial demographic of the Republicans, that is something that must be actively promulgated. It can't just be purely just running against something.
I'm sorry, we got to wrap this up. Thank you again all so much for coming, and let's toss it back to Will at the desk.
Locally, some LA residents went to the polls today to vote on a number of measures, city council members, and tax issues. Annenberg Media's Laura Bizzari takes us to Compton, where voter turnout is low.
One of the main controversial issues on the ballot this election is a pay raise for the Compton mayor and city council members. One Compton resident says this issue is what brought her out to the polls.
When you have a mayor that gets up and walks out because she doesn't like what's being said, That's a problem that concerns me. You volunteered, you wanted that position, you need to hear your constituents.
Annenberg Media reached out to the mayor's office for comment and have not heard back yet. Political analysts say that there's no room for apathy, even in local elections.
What people don't realize is, yeah, you're not going to necessarily change the world in local elections, but if you elect someone in your local city who is focused on fighting or helping out with traffic congestion, and you go to them and you say, you know, I really want this stop sign right here, it's next to my kid's school, and they're able to put that through, you know, you're not necessarily changing the world, but you're definitely helping out your community.
In 2015, only 8% of Compton's residents turned out to vote for their local municipal elections. Gary Compton has voted for the last 20 years.
It's going to help them or it's going to hurt them. You know, it's their choice, but they really should get involved.
Polls throughout LA County will close tonight at 8. For Annenberg Media, I'm Laura Pizzotti.
Today, on our Facebook, we put out a poll to see how many of our followers voted today. Here are the results. Now, less than 10% of participants voted yes, just 8% voted. 65% did not vote but knew it was election day, and 27% didn't even know it was election day today.
Immigrants' rights groups are opposing the Trump administration's decision to terminate the temporary protected status for more than 5,000 people from Nicaragua. Reporter Judy Tsai found out more about their demands.
Dozens of activists and immigrants gathered near Koreatown, angry that many Nicaraguans will be forced to return to their country of origin. One woman from Honduras is worried she may be next.
My family is here. My job is here. My life is here.
Some activists believe immigrants with temporary protected status, or TPS, have earned the right to live in the U.S. and want these immigrants to be given green cards.
They deserve a permanent place in our country. They have U.S. citizen children, U.S. citizen spouses, own businesses.
While California is a sanctuary state, immigrants with TPS don't necessarily have extra protection.
I spoke with one legal director who told me the Department of Homeland Security already has all the information they need to find and deport any Nicaraguan who isn't able to achieve legal status and thus becomes undocumented.
Anyone with TPS has been providing their information to the Department of Homeland Security. So there is no need for cooperation between local and federal authorities or local and state agencies.
TPS for Nicaraguans began after Hurricane Mitch, but the Department of Homeland Security says the conditions caused by the hurricane no longer exist, which is why the federal agency is getting rid of TPS. Javier Lugo is a USC student from Nicaragua, and he says people in his country are still suffering, just not from the hurricane.
The government back home, it is dangerous and it's corrupt.
Nicaraguans with TPS will have until January 2019 to either become a permanent resident or leave the U.S. For Annenberg Media, I'm Judy Tsai.
The Walt Disney Company reversed its decision to exclude LA Times reporters from film screenings today after a fierce backlash from news organizations, critics groups, and members of the Hollywood community. Disney blocked the LA Times from advanced movie screenings after the newspaper published a story examining the business relationship between the Disneyland theme park and the city of Anaheim. Disney released a statement this morning saying, quote, "We've had productive discussions with the newly installed leadership at the Los Angeles Times regarding our specific concerns. And as a result, we've agreed to restore advanced screenings for their film critics." Two critics shared why they believe Disney backed down.
I think they didn't want to be portrayed as a bully, quite frankly. Is bullying behavior. It's trying to exert their power over journalists.
Awards make a difference for a studio's placement of movies at a certain time of the year. And they don't just make a difference in terms of prestige value, they make a difference from a commercial standpoint. So as soon as you see this affecting the bottom line, that's when the company starts to decide that something needs to happen.
The LA Times told Annenberg Media it has, quote, "covered the Walt Disney Company since its founding in 1923. We look forward to reporting on Disney well into the future." After the terrorist attack in New York last week, a company in LA is manufacturing a way to keep bikers and pedestrians safe.
And broken sidewalks throughout LA are causing residents to demand repairs from their city council members.
And tornado warnings throughout the Midwest are catching the attention of daring storm chasers.
Recently, our country has witnessed catastrophic devastation. Hurricanes and flooding have upended lives and livelihoods.
Across this great country, Americans have answered the call.
That special calling that compels us, when others are down, to step up and do whatever it takes.
America's at her best when, against all odds, we come together and lift each other up.
Please donate to oneamericaappeal.org. America needs you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably going to turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
South Los Angeles residents are demanding the city repair a cracked sidewalk that are dangerous in their neighborhood.
6 years and we're still waiting. And you see, when you can see those pictures, they still all messed it out. And I had a wheelchair, my dad is on wheelchair, and we don't feel safe to go outside and walk because we're afraid to fall.
The cracked sidewalks have been an ongoing issue for the last couple of years. City Councilman Harris Dawson issued a statement saying, quote, "The city of Los Angeles is in urgent need of infrastructure investments and our residents are in need of good jobs. This is a perfect match and should not be controversial. The RE is a clear path forward. Hire workers and fix our infrastructure."
The LA County Board of Supervisors voted today to review the safety of bike paths, walking trails, and promenades after last week's deadly attack in New York City. As Eitan Wallace reports, one local company is working to protect pedestrians.
They become an all too familiar sight around the world. Nice, France, London, England, and just last week, New York City. Innocent people killed when a driver plowed into pedestrians. But a Los Angeles-based company is hoping to prevent such attacks in the future. Cal Pipe Industries builds these barriers called bollards.
The bollards can protect against accidental or intentional vehicular incursions into people or property, so into pedestrian areas.
Last year, the bollard successfully stopped a car in its tracks before it could hit people in Times Square. The company also installed these barriers along the Santa Monica Pier. They can stop a 15,000-pound vehicle traveling at 50 miles an hour.
As you can see here, building bollards is quite a process. Some take up to 3 months to build and could cost up to $15,000. But Cal Pipe says it's all worth it because at the end of the day, these save lives.
A month to 3 months for bollards to get made to be able to potentially save a life if there were ever to be an accident or, God forbid, an intentional vehicle attack. I think is something well worth it.
It's crazy. Every day, Mother Jennifer Toledo walks her 4-year-old daughter Abigail to daycare through Expo Park. She says it's important to be alert.
Be careful, be safe, and look around your surroundings because anything might happen, you don't know, and you might not be prepared. It's kind of scary to think that, but it is. It's reality right now.
Cal Pipe's plans to install more of these barriers in downtown LA, as well as other big cities across the country. For Annenberg Media in Rancho Dominguez, I'm Eitan Wallace.
Well, Brittany, it's finally sweater weather.
It's finally sweater weather. I'm bringing a jacket to school every day. Let's hear from Taylor to see if I get to bring my sweater to school.
Thanks, guys. You're right. Temperatures are finally starting to cool down. Let's take a look at our current conditions. Right now, we're at about 66 degrees out. Now, jumping ahead to tomorrow, in the mountains, it's going to start to cool down with 58 degrees in Big Bear, and things are going to heat up in the desert with 83 degrees in Palm Springs. And in the valley, things are going to be in the 70s with 74 degrees in Thousand Oaks and 70 degrees on the coast in Malibu. And back home at USC, we're going to be at a breezy 72 degrees. And looking at our 5-day forecast, we're going to be in the 70s all week. Temperatures will slightly dip on Thursday and Friday, but will be back up to 74 degrees on Sunday. Many Midwest residents experienced severe weather as over 20 tornadoes swept through the region over the weekend. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania were 4 states with confirmed tornadoes. Homes and businesses were damaged, but few injuries were reported. Many areas experienced heavy rainfall and flooding as well. The National Weather Service issued tornado warnings in Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and Ohio. There are no more tornadoes on the horizon, but the region should expect heavy rainfall and hail later this week. Guys, I don't know about you, but I am terrified of tornadoes, so my thoughts are always with those.
Right after I saw the movie Twister when I was little, I was terrified growing up in California. I mean, I've never had to deal with a tornado.
You know, massive destruction being caused throughout the Midwest. We hope it gets better for them. Sinclair Broadcast Group merged with Tribune Media in a $4 billion deal. Democratic representatives opposed the merger, saying it would harm viewer numbers of local news stations. The Sinclair Tribune TV merger has received backlash from critics as people are concerned with the fallout of the merger. The nearly $4 billion deal to create a nationwide TV powerhouse includes 223 stations serving 108 markets, including 39 of the top 50. The merged corporations would be able to reach 72% of U.S. households. Supporters of the merger believe Sinclair would be able to expand the station's local coverage, while those opposed say those public interest benefits fall short, fearing a decline in local news for millions of people. Now, Pete, I hear USC basketball is looking to do big things this season.
That's right, Will. And the women's volleyball team is coming off a pair of big wins at home over this weekend, so we went to practice today to get the latest on the squad. We'll also look ahead to the USC football game in chilly Colorado on Saturday as the boys look to wrap up the Pac-12 South and a spot in the championship game. And with the basketball season just 3 days away, we'll give you a preview of the top-ranked Trojans and talk about a problem that a certain team in Westwood is facing. We'll have this.
You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home just in case. Why would you do that?
Probably okay isn't okay. Call a cab, a car, or a friend.
Good choice.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to savethefood.com.
After 15 years of smoking, Eva Marie quit. There's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
After a pair of well-rounded performances, the USC football team is starting to fire on all cylinders as they look to finish the season on a high note. USC can secure a spot in the Pac-12 title game, which was one of their main preseason goals, if they beat the Colorado Buffaloes this Saturday in Boulder. USC is 11-0 all-time against Colorado and are entering this road game as 14-point favorites. Colorado is only 5-5 on the season, but they should have plenty of motivation this weekend because a win would guarantee them a spot in a bowl game. Let's hope that the Trojans can stay hot and avoid injuries as game-time temperatures will dip into the low 40s. Well, the latest college football playoff rankings were released today, and USC has jumped all the way from the 17th to the number 11th spot. The top 4 playoff positions stayed the same, with Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson rounding out the Final 4. USC students should be getting excited because the basketball team is just 3 days away from kicking off their most anticipated season in years. A number 10 ranking, an abundance of talent, and an innovative head coach give the Trojans high expectations when it comes to competing in the Pac-12 and making a deep tournament run. The Trojans have 8 returning players from last year's roster, a team that won a program record 28 games. In other Pac-12 basketball news, 3 UCLA Bruins were arrested in China this morning after they allegedly shoplifted from a Louis Vuitton store next to their team hotel. The 3 players, Cody Riley, Jalen Hill, and LiAngelo Ball, are all 18-year-old freshmen, with Ball, of course, being the younger brother of Lakers guard Lonzo Ball. The players were questioned in a hotel room for several hours and were very scared, according to ESPN. Now onto the hardwood. The 17th ranked women's volleyball team was back in action this weekend when they hosted Arizona State and the University of Arizona at the Galen Center. After a convincing 3-1 win over Arizona State, USC topped Arizona a 5-set thriller as 5 Trojans scored in double digits. Sophomore Kalia Lanier led the way with 16 kills in the 3-2 victory. Coach Mick Haley is confident in his team's play at this point in the season. The women of Troy have 6 Pac-12 games remaining to close out the regular season, 5 of which come against top 25 teams. So guys, it was snowing today in Boulder. I'm sure you guys probably aren't making the trip out to Boulder then.
You know, I've made the trip to Indiana, Arizona, but not going to Boulder this weekend, watching from home.
Yep, went up to San Francisco. I think Colorado might be a little too chilly for me. Thanks, Pete. And coming up, a historic cafe in Hollywood won a contest thanks to local support.
We'll be right back.
Don't ignore the subtext. It's on us to intervene in sexual assault. Because we can. Take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be?
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
The Hollywood favorite Formosa Cafe is being awarded a $150,000 grant thanks to Angelenos. The National Trust for Historic Preservation hosted a countrywide fundraising competition last month to preserve sites like Formosa. The famous celebrity hangout competed against 24 other sites and won. The new ownership team at Formosa Cafe says the money will be used to restore the original section of the restaurant, a 100-year-old trolley car. Thanks for watching Annenberg TV News. From everyone here at Annenberg Media, I'm Brittany Hope.
And I'm Will Farnsworth. You can watch us on the web at uscannenbergmedia.com. Good night.